Just a huge disclaimer, this challenge was attempted about a year ago or so. I'd say a bit after Salvation's Edge dropped. So I'm just gonna talk like this just happened, and only include what's going on around that time. I did not want to waste all that time I put into the script. So, with the arrival of the final shape, the Destiny sandbox has only gotten immensely crazier. Prismatic has set a new and seemingly unreachable bar when it comes to just how strong ability spam can be in this game. In conjunction with dropping a weapon that has its own super, we have reached new heights in terms of our own power level. Now, what if we disregard basically all of what I just said? Take the new legendary campaign that was tailor-made for these new toys, minus the super gun, and try and beat that with only my favorite weapon as the only damage source. That's right, I tried to answer the question of, can you beat the legendary Final Shape campaign with only damage from Outbreak? Let's see how it went. The rules that make this challenge, well, a challenge, are quite simple. The only thing that can generate a damage number from me has to be from this gun. That even means no uncharged melee, scorched damage for placing a well, not even a single tick from Unravel. What I will allow, however, is enemy friendly fire, so think cursed troll death explosions and any other interactions that surely exist. Of course, if it's a relic or a mechanic that needs to deal damage to a certain thing, that's allowed since I don't know any cool skips to bypass the need for relic damage. And finally, I will be allowing only one slip of forgiveness, due to the sheer amount of time and variables that go into this. So say I accidentally eager edge to something, that mistake will be forgiven. But only once. A lot has happened since the final shape dropped Prismatic, new exotics, and the addition of surges to most of the relevant content. Then, the swift removal of those surges. What I mean by surges are, if I match my subclass with the current surge element, kinetic weapons get the 25% boost too. But if I had a bad rotation of surges, say Arc or Stasis, then I'd immediately be doing less damage. But none of that matters anymore since the community made it very clear that this was not a good idea, and Bungie nuked them out of the game. Now, you think there would be a big change to the build from our last video, which you should check out by the way, it's very good. But actually, I can't use any of the new stuff, except for one thing.
That's a surprise tool that can help us later.
At a glance, you would look at Prismatic and think this would be perfect for this type of challenge. What catches my eye is Transcendence. If you fill this bar with enough light and dark damage, you transcend, and gain crazy melee and grenade regen, along with some DR and a weapon damage increase. This would be perfect considering you can charge both parts of the bar by using kinetic damage, and since, you know, that's the only damage I'm allowed to do. Prismo, that's how I'm gonna refer to Prismatic sometimes, would be the go-to subclass if it weren't for 3 limiting factors, and we'll be looking at Warlocks since they're the only ones with access to healing grenades. Now, these limiting factors are, 1. I cannot use the available supers in Prismatic for obvious reasons. One that's not so obvious is Song of Flame, which technically would be perfect except for one small detail. While in the super, solar and more importantly, kinetic weapons are granted scorched rounds, which I don't know about you, but I'd classify that as super damage, and not outbreak damage. A real shame. The second factor is that when you activate Transcendence, you gain a somewhat mediocre grenade instead of your equipped one. So I lose out on my healing grenade, which kinda sucks, not gonna lie. I'd much rather have the ability to spam normal grenades, but hey, that'd be broken, right? It's not like Prismo Titan exists or anything. Lastly, the aspects are very subpar for the restrictions of this challenge. Touch of Flame and Icarus Dash are clear winners here. Looks like I'm still glued to Solar Warlock. Speaking of which, a new exotic drop that's a huge buff to us. I'm talking about the Speaker's Helm. This exotic gives you a healing turret when you throw your healing grenade, and generates an orb of power on healing something. Alright, now when it comes down to the new Speaker's Helm versus Eye of Another World, Eye has the ability to highlight important enemies, and we're just gonna use Speaker's Helm. It's just better uptime on healing, and the orb it generates helps with reducing ability cooldowns on its own. Something I didn't do last time was that I didn't go over the artifact perks that were present when I was doing the challenge. I feel like I should mention some standout ones that added some, let's just say, quality of life to this. Starting with column 1, there's Anti-Barrier Pulse Rifle. Being able to pierce phalanx shields with no effort is always welcome. There's not much to talk about in column 2, so skipping to column 3, there's Elemental Siphon, where multi-kills with weapons that match your super element will create an elemental pickup of that damage type, which also works with kinetic weapons. So, if I get multi-kills with Outbreak, I can spawn a Fire Sprite. This works in tandem with a Solar Fragment that gives me restoration when I pick one of those up. This is just increased survivability if I'm forced to move. Then there's Press the Advantage, that gives us increased weapon stability, handling, and reload speed upon breaking an enemy shield, which is just passive bonus stats. And there's a lot of shields in this campaign. Jumping to the 4th column, a pretty nice perk awaits us, that being Radiant Orbs. You simply become Radiant when picking up an orb, which is pretty huge for the amount of orbs we poop out. For the last column, there's only one perk that interests me, Shield Crush. This gives you increased grenade recharge rate and damage for simply being amplified or radiant. So this sets us up with a small but effective loop of throw a grenade for a healing turret, gen an orb for being healed, get a free 25% damage increase, and have that grenade come back even faster. Pair that with some armor mods and we can have our grenade be up pretty often. Last thing is that I remembered glaives exist, and I found out that they don't need to shoot to gain the energy required to raise their shields. You just have to have it out and it'll just slowly recharge on its own. This added with the raid glaive that has a shiny new perk that periodically heals you for being in combat, adjacent to frenzy. This became a special weapon I can use without ever needing to fire it. I just wish I remembered this thing existed when I was actually running this. Now, without further ado, let's see how this all went down. Wait. How can I forget about the giant elephant in the room? Outbreak is now craftable. Yay! We can now allocate its stats to suit our preferences. And we can finally get rid of Outlaw for a more useful trait, like Rapid Hit, which, in my opinion, is just better Outlaw. You got a Headseeker, which has so much potential if the nanites can activate. Oh, they can't? Sick. That leaves us with the Godsend from Bungie, the best perk they put on any craftable weapon by many miles. Rewind rounds. Basically, you get refunded ammo straight into the mag based on how many shots you landed before you reach empty. Pair this with the new magazine options and you'll be firing for ages. This trait isn't earth-shattering in terms of shooting Outbreak into the DPS meta. It's just a massive quality of life change, significantly reducing the amount of times you need to reload this thing. Actually, you can say that about all the crafting exotic. Tailor your exotic to fit your playstyle. Now, some do it better than others, but I'm just happy Outbreak got theirs. Okay, actually getting into the run. The first mission, Transmigration, I definitely butchered that, sets the precedent on how this entire thing is gonna go. We open with a long but a little satisfying showcase of how the damage ramps up on Outbreak, which is further enhanced by the addition of rewind rounds. After marrying dark and light energy at this nut, we are treated with a short area transition where you can actually skip the enemies for once, which is always welcome. Right after, we are challenged with the same exact objective. The only difference are that the nut is locked up by 3 shootable prisms, and that there are more adds, as well as the area being small. But since I can spawn kill mostly everything in here, we quickly move on. Another short jumping section and we reach another nut unlocking. This one could be a challenge on its own, but ended up just being annoying. It's the same as the other nuts, but this time the icon holder is joined by a very pleasant stasis knight and 2 sniper vandals that are all yellow bars by the way, and they're accompanied by many of those shield goblins, so I can't just burn down the bosses quickly. But now that I think about it, I guess that's how you're supposed to use this weapon. You know, get a headshot on smaller ad and hope those nanites that spawned latch onto your bigger target so you can melt it faster. I just wish the tracking area for those nanites had a bigger search radius. But anyway, once the homies are dead, we unlock and power up the nut. Then we jump as fast as we can to get teleported further into the Traveler. We are then met with a quite gorgeous section that's cool the first go around, but when you have to do this 6 to 7 plus times, it gets quite tedious. After that break, we get another break, but this time I get to practice my dog eager edge scaling. Following that, we get introduced to the first enemy in the Witness's Dread army, the Grimm. These flying things don't just have janky movement, but they have the much needed ability to let out a deafening scream that literally gives you tinnitus, which slows you down and locks you out of all of your abilities, except for your super, so you can still press it in a panic. Right after we silence those Grimms, we get our first experience with a pretty important mechanic, the Prismatic Flicker Cracks. Is that the best name you can come up with? This simply fills up your Transcendence meter if you stand in it long enough. What makes it important besides the fact there are enemies that you need to hit only while you're Transcendent to break their special shield, is that we can Transcend even when we're not on Prismatic, which is kinda huge when it's available as it's just free damage and survivability, with the only caveat being that they're usually out in the open, so there's some risk there. After that section, we make contact with another dread enemy, one of the Cabal Scion's cousins, the Strandweaver. What makes these guys stand out is that instead of studying psychic powers, these guys are studying Mortal Kombat, because they have a complete one-to-one to Scorpion's Get Over Here. Just like the Grimm, if you're caught sleeping for even a second, you can lose your positioning or just straight up die depending on what they feel that day, due to physics. Anyway, after a mediocre game of fetch with some prismatic sprinkled in, finished off with a pristine example of what the new Outbreak is capable of, we move on to the final section of the mission. With a rally flag here, you know you're in for something fun. And fun it is. It started off with your run-of-the-mill ad clear, followed by 2 Prisma dudes, where thankfully one of them decided to do whatever this is. Then, in the final wave, we meet our first Subjugator. Now, this guy is basically a beefed up Weaver. This time they're armed with a shotgun lance thing that really hurts, as well as a big tracking suspending blast that, well, suspends you. Mix this with their large health pool for Outbreak and their sporadic movement, and you get one very annoying boss. But after a couple of minutes of holding M1 and the boss being relatively well behaved, we finish the first mission with only Outbreak damage. Next up, we have Temptation. After reuniting with Cade 6, oh yeah, Cade's back, but only for a little bit, so don't get too mad. Anyway, we're met with a new enemy, the Attendants. These are the brothers of the Scion's cousins. But instead of picking Scorpion in Mortal Kombat, these guys love Sub-Zero, cause they're all about stasis and slowing you down to a crawl. And I guess there's Tormentors, which aren't technically new, but now we know what army they're technically a part of. These fellas definitely sell their name, given all the special mechanics and attributes they possess. They have massive DR for any non-precision damage, and even on those precision hits, there's still a bit of DR. Get too close and they'll hit you with a suppressing slam. They got whatever this is, that hits like a truck. And they even have a never before seen grab attack. Back to the run, after we meet our new friends, we immediately dismember them with some prismatic assistance. Our next objective is to deactivate 3 conduits by moving this needle into the correct direction. In order to do so, we just have to kill the correct amount of Scions to get enough stacks necessary to move the needle either clockwise or counterclockwise. Do that 2 more times, kill a stasis subjugator. Alright, new member of the Dread, big bro of the Attendants, very lethal, sleeping, yada yada. Except this one has a lot less health. Kill him, finish the 3rd conduit, and we find an actual boss. Now, this homie can be a real nuisance for this challenge, with its respawning blights that force me to get up close and personal, which is the last thing I want to be doing in this challenge. We got the boss's push attack that I can only really counteract with Icarus Dash, cause one wrong sword swing and it's a restart. And then you got 2 yellow bar attendants that can't choose between rushing me or sitting in the back of the arena. But after surprisingly only about 3 minutes, we're able to move on to even more bosses. This time with Prisma Shields. Besides a sort of janky arena and a much more tanky subjugator that I feel like can one-shot me if I breathe wrong, it was still a better experience than what I just went through, but only by a little. After chipping away at the subjugator and having the witness whisper to us to the point of heart attacks, we finished the 2nd mission. The 3rd mission, Exegesis? No, that doesn't sound right.
Exegesis
instantly adds in new mechanics with the addition of having us haul some stone and no, don't say it, just move on. After opening the door, we are met with a new enemy type and the final member of the Dread, the Husks. These guys are simply a quite aggressive melee unit that, if you kill them with damage to their tummy, they give birth to a flying child, or I think that's their soul or something, that also wants to kill you. After backpedaling for a couple seconds, we are met with the only exception to the rule, where I need to kill these knights with the Aegis relic in order to make light,
redacted,
that I need to dunk on the corresponding plate in order to progress. After that room, we have to do the same thing again, minus the Husks, and add this guy. Kill that guy, pick up this rock that's a key for some reason, and we move on. After we dispatch of an attendant, we find the same puzzle again, with this time you have to place the correct
redacted
in an alternating sequence. Once carefully solved, we advance to the first of many skill, and I guess patient checks in this run. Not because it's a hard boss or anything, but the fact that we need to shoot off a super blast from the Aegis relic to break his shield, to actually do damage. Where the real fear comes in is that there are some ads that tend to wander around the boss, and with how auto-aim and how generous blast radiuses can be in this game, I have to make sure that I hit the boss, and only the boss with the blast. I only have 1 mess up, so I don't want to use it up so early. After doing some zombie training, I'm able to successfully preserve my 1 mess up forgiveness. Then, we remove 1/3 of his health, and we're able to move on. Skip some ads, and we have to do that 2 more times, with the addition of more things I could possibly shoot with the relic. Now, I know you're thinking, just kill them all, and you have a free window to shoot them. Unfortunately, from what I can tell, these guys infinitely respawn, and by the time I kill them and try and charge a super, by the time it's ready, the ads spawn directly around the boss. So after removing some attendants, weavers, and more knights, we do it the old-fashioned way. About 2 more times, and the ogre is down. And we're not done with the mission yet. As some sort of respite, I get to lay waste to a bunch of trash ads, and kill a tormentor quite satisfyingly from a ways away. Finally, we talk to Bald, and we eager our way out of the 3rd mission and into the 4th one. While moving on to Requiem, if we actually take a look back at the previous missions, they've actually been pretty bearable, with it only taking us an hour or so to reach this point. But now is where these missions start to, let's say, up the ante a bit. Now the first part of this mission is basically a shooting gallery with, in hindsight, actually a lot of ads you have to tear through. And the main mechanic is just having to play an image matching game. The actual difficulty of this section just boils down to if the captains just want to sit still long enough for me to delete them. We cap off this section by destroying a subjugator, which grants us the ability to move on to the first of the real run killers, the Pain Cave. Now, what makes this place a real pain isn't the what feels like thousands of trip mines and slow traps that force you to total around the already claustrophobic area. It isn't the return of the ADHD captains, this time with Yellowbar health. The true cause of my anguish in this section is the presence of one activity modifier that's present in almost every quote-unquote difficult piece of content. I'm talking about chaff, of course, Bungie's magnum opus of difficulty modifiers. For those of you not in the know, all chaff does is remove your radar. That's it, that's all it does. Not bad in most places, just gotta pay attention. But in here, I have to play paranoid, play in fear, because if I'm not, I will quickly be reminded why I should have been, with an exploder shank punting me back all the way to the beginning. And you can just call this a skill issue. And you'd be right. When I was first running this and figuring out spawn patterns, you can guess what happened. Yeesh, that section was long, sorry. Getting back to it, after tiptoeing my way to one end of this cave to the other and crouching a Yellowbar robo party, twice, I then proceed to be hunted by Tormentor. After he's dealt with, I just pick up the right symbols the robos dropped, and we can move on. Yep, the mission isn't over. Following some forced whispers and some tragic event or something, we reach the final section. This is leagues better than the cave, as we are met with a familiar open field, this time with a house. Oh, and this guy. And fun fact, I've actually seen him actually kill someone here, cause they crossed his line of fire. I don't know if they fixed it, but I ain't trying to find out, you know? To cap off the mission, we just lay into this walking crit spot without getting bombarded on, and dispatch up 2 subjugators, and get past one of the first hells, moving on to number 5. Alright, Ascent, Mission 5. We're halfway there.
Actually, wouldn't halfway through the previous mission be the halfway point and not here?
Anyway, we begin by doing the tiniest of parkour, and even this is dangerous this far into the run. Sneak past some ads, and we find the first combat section. What's notable here are the 2 shotgun subjugators that are the first ones in history to actually push me and get up in my face. These guys are just pure annoyance. I mean, look at that strafing, like what? After we strangle the subjugators and deal with the stragglers, deal with this big boy, and once everything is dead, we can finally throw the ball and proceed. Right into what I think is a new way of traversal in this game. But since this game is Destiny 2, I feel they could just simply cease working just cuz, and end my run at any moment. Carrying on the ascent, we kill a subjugator and some Prisma dudes. Proceed and we deal with these guys on the way to a wyvern. Annihilate him, do some more jumping, and we reach this mission's dreaded midsection. Now the reason this part is, well, dreaded, is because for this challenge, I have to sit in the prismatic wells in order to kill the minotaurs that drop the thing I need to progress. And these wells are not in the most safe spot. All while the same minotaurs and wyverns have the option of sitting back and playing insanely passively, but not so much so they can at least poke endlessly, or go pedal to the metal and give me no space and just rush me down. I don't even feel safe enough to place a well down since there's a ton of ads in the middle that adhere to the same logic. Thankfully, however, everyone decided to play nicely today, and this area went relatively smoothly than expected. After that, we immediately find a dead subjugator. Huh, how'd that happen? Ensuing that discovery, we then fall into the evil pipes. These pipes aren't just a falling hazard, but they're accompanied by the evil Grims and the evil Hobgoblin snipers. They'll try to halt you for advancing, but I never had trouble with them. But at least I know they're trying. Following that, we reach a genuine boss encounter. Now the real catch with this part, besides the semi-claustrophobic arena, is actually, oh I forgot, subjugators spawn here too, because of course they do, is actually making sure there are no straggling ads around when I throw the ball at these doors to progress the fight. And I guess these forced close range wyverns are scary too. But after matching the right symbols and dropping the boss's shield, and the boss itself, we still aren't done with this. Instead, we find ourselves where it literally all began for us, in both a scary and yet familiar area. Here, we are put to the test and have 2/3 of our tools of survival taken away from us. That being our Well of Radiance and Healing Grenade, leaving us just with our Healing Rift. This is because, you know, normally you'd want to go crazy with the new super and crazy super regen. From a little testing I've done, it doesn't seem you can overwrite your current aspects. So, all I had to do was keep calm and play very, very safe, and just plink away at everything at my own pace. I can even run to the opposite end of this vast area if I need to escape that badly. But with the final ogre slain, we finally wrap up the ascent. Okay, Mission 6, Descent. We're officially in the endgame now. We start off by talking to a statue for some reason. I don't know, go watch a lore video or something. Followed by some chunky hive. Afterwards, we have to deal with this conga line of cursed thralls and some chunky ogres that thankfully decide to be on good behavior today and kept their distance. Moving on, we find ourselves in what I dubbed the Room of Questions. Because what happens in here just makes you wonder why. Like, why would these chieftains rather hide than fight? Like, I think they only shot at me once or twice in here. And why are we spawning a beefy ass subjugator in this tiny ass room? Why can't his AI decide on whether it wants to cower in fear or absolutely wreck me? More of the same, I guess. Another fight of my life dealt with, and into the storm we go, where there's no natural healing permitted. Thankfully, unnatural healing still works in here, and that's my entire build, so this plays with no issue. Next we play peekaboo with some orange bars and talk to another homie, and back into the storm we go. Same thing as before, no sweat. Well, maybe besides the scream jump scares. More killing, talk, storm, kill, talk, and finally we're tasked with something different. Well, different from all that at least. Here we just clear out 3 rooms and we're met with a tormentor, which we want no part of. And we backpedal our way to victory. After taking my sweet time in a jumping section, we reach the boss of this mission, and this one can be a doozy. In order to drop his shield, we have to kill 2 subjugators in some of the weirdest areas we've ever fought these guys, all while having lightning rain down upon us periodically, forcing us to relocate. And after we deal with those guys, we have another ogre boss situation from mission 3. Do you remember what I'm referring to? I'll give you some time to remember. Good? So yeah, rinse and repeat that, and the only thing left to do is haul our ass out of here. I can't even safely eager edge through this cause, you know. And yes, I know, you can look up to prevent the unwanted tracking, but you have to understand why I wouldn't want to risk that right now, right? Though, even without eager edge, we're able to leave Descent behind us, leaving only one more obstacle in front of us. Iconoclasm. I'm confident in that one.
Iconoclasm.
We start off the finale by chugging through some ads and constantly looking down, cause here, there's a lot of areas that are separated, leaving a gap between a lot of them. Once we cross these gaps, we find ourselves at the first real combat section, and man does this one set the precedent for how the rest of this is gonna go. We got 2 wizards that love sitting in the area that is the farthest possible distance from me, 2 Prismo attendants that also built their residence in the back. The Prismo wells are also located there, mind you, all while being guarded by a nice and healthy tormentor. The game plan I drew up was to try and kill the wizards, followed by the attendants and then the tormentor for last, which is way easier said than done thanks to the rectangle island-like layout. But eventually, I was able to execute just how Coach intended. Following that ordeal, we deal with some more sketchy ass jumping, and the ghost room to reach even more fun. This time, the Prisma wells are on the side I enter the room at, but that doesn't stop the stasis subjugator from pushing me out of them. Once taken care of, we must traverse downstairs where we are met with some oh so pleasant melee dudes that I gladly keep an outbreakable length. After we finish them off, we go up and deal with the quite tanky but the least annoying boss I think we'll ever see in this run. After he falls, we do even more sketchy parkour to reach the farthest point I've ever gotten in this run, this big ass ogre. Now, the most annoying part of this fight by far is figuring out how to destroy these blights with Tweedledee and Tweedledum in them. They never want to leave from inside, under any circumstances, and if I step in at the wrong time, Tweedledee can basically one-shot me while in there, and Tweedledum can rack up a lot of damage quickly as soon as I step in there as well. So, I'm forced to play this stupid game of chicken. Thankfully, Tweedledee can just lose object permanence, and I'm also able to place a rift in between both sides of the blight. Afterwards, we must venture into another basement with those melee knights. With the combination of it being a maze down there and chaff, it honestly makes it pretty terrifying. Once both are dealt with, we match the symbols and we have to play yet another minigame with the relic. This one is a little more forgiving since, from what I can tell, I could just leave one ad alive, train him, and more don't seem to spawn in. Do another DPS phase we're all too familiar with, and do that all again. And with the ogre dead, I conquered my PB. The reason this was my PB in the first place was because for some reason I thought I could survive a point blank slam attack from one of the knights. I went back and tested this and I was right, if I had a single melee resist mod. Anyway, continuing after a lengthy scolding by the witness, we can finally proceed to the final and sketchiest jump section there is in this campaign. It's like one of those McDonald's play areas where it's fun on the inside and not so fun on the outside. After conquering the playpen, we reach the apex of our journey, the witness. Now, this fight is relatively simple with all things considered. We just have to whittle down the subjugator all while the witness throws these devastating attacks at us. These have an audio cue that tells us right when they're about to be launched. But with my nerves at the highest they'll ever be during this, I hope you understand why I might struggle to keep my composure here. But we survive, and after dealing half of the sub's health, we, of course, have to use the shield relic to bring down his shield, all while small ads run around the place. We manage to bring down the shield and deal with the remainder of the sub, and a new relic spawns. A sword. We have to use this to break a lock in order to progress, so we gotta do more trading. Once we do what we gotta do, we're met with another sub, this time in green. This one's a lot more aggressive, and with the added mechanic of having to keep this timer up lest we take constant chip damage, the pressure is on. We whittle away half of its HP like before. A shield spawns. We've done this before, but when I go to shoot the super, I see an extra damage number. I couldn't even see what I hit, but if we look closely, a thrall disappears in the explosion. This is why I protected my one forgiveness for all this time with my life. All for this exact moment. But remember, there's more relic sections left, so I'm not out of the woods yet. We do the same song and dance again, but this time with this insanely close call. If he had shot normally, and he was gonna, I'd probably be dead. But instead, he cancelled that shot with a stomp, probably saving the run. I eventually finish off the sub, and go for another swing. And I get it again. But for this one, a thrall disappears, but I don't see an extra damage number, so I ain't counting it. Once we return to the arena for the final time, and I quickly dispatch the low health subjugator that's here for some reason, I pick up the sword for one final swing. I just beeline for the lock, not even thinking. And I get it. No extra damage number, no disappearing thrall, just a clean swipe. But it's still not over. We have to do a final walk to escape this madness. What makes this last part scary is usually you're supposed to be on a slither of health, but for some reason, I don't know if it's intentional, I was able to throw my healing grenade right before you get teleported, basically securing the run. While walking, you are bombarded by some strong attacks, and I thought they didn't one-shot you, but I'm not trying to find out. After an arduous walk through wherever we are, we escape and secure the Legend Final Shape campaign, solo flawless, with the only damage dealt by me coming from Outbreak Perfected. And I'm pretty sure I never used the glaive shield even once. Well, I'm back. If you're hearing this, thank you so much for reaching the end of this video. It really means so much to me. And I'd like to apologize for the long break between videos if you're excited to see the next one. I don't know why, but I always have to fight myself to work on these videos. It doesn't make sense since I enjoy the process of making videos. At least I think I do. It's probably due to the depression that I finally accepted I've had for honestly a very long time, and I've finally gotten the proper help. I feel like the fog has finally started to part, and my vision is the clearest it's possibly ever been. So please do not be afraid to get help. You will regret it, I promise you. With that being said, I'll be trying again to consistently stream on Wednesday, Thursday, and Saturday, preferably before noon on twitch.tv/thenorkside, and maybe YouTube. Make sure to follow my Twitter or pay attention to the community posts for updates and polls on what we should do next. And hopefully these videos won't take months to release. If you have an idea, let me know in the comments. And with that, I hope you have a wonderful day, evening, or night. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye. He asked me specifically, I was like, I don't know, bro.
And you're like, man, we should totally make out.
Oh my god.
Oh, I know, Nick. I'll act really normal.
You, bro. Don't. Oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh boy, oh boy. Oh my god. Oh my god. Feel faster, man.